So today I'm going to tell the story about my manual 1.8 litre converted Z11 Nissan Cube. So I want to talk about what, why and how. So let's talk about the what. So 2 years ago I purchased this car, a Z11 1.4 litre auto Nissan Cube. I was new to town and wanted to meet some people, so I went to a local Cube meet. And at that club meet, I met Anthony. He was talking about his Nissan Tiida swapped Z11 Nissan Cube. And in that car, he had done a MR18DE manual conversion, finding out that the Tiida engine will actually fit inside the Nissan Cube. And that's the only thing that made me want to do the conversion on this car. So the Z11 Cube is a pretty awesome car. It's a very unique shape. There's a lot of space inside. It's great for parking. It's a really comfortable driving position and it's a lot of fun. So the only negative I had with the car was the engine. So 1.4 litre, extremely underpowered. The automatic gearbox was terrible. It would change gears at the wrong time. You'd have to manually select overdrive. So underpowered that it's one of those cars that you lean forward in the hope that you'll go quicker. Everything good about the car is part of the body, and everything bad about the car is part of the engine. So that made it a great candidate to even consider doing an engine conversion. So the part that everybody's really interested in, how we fit an MR18DE. So it looks pretty factory. MR18DE. The manual gearbox is tucked down in there also. Everything really bolts in. So fitting the engine is incredibly simple. It bolts into all the factory mounting locations. For the gearbox side, you will have to fit the Tiida battery tray, the Tiida ECU bracket. And for the engine side, you will have to use the Nissan Cube front engine mount. And everything else is Tiida. On mine, I made a bracket. I cut this section off of the Tiida to put the engine steady on. So for the radiator, you will run a Tiida radiator. You'll have to drill a hole for the radiator mount here. That's the original hole there. Fit the Tiida lower rad support to give the radiator the slope that it needs. The overflow bottle needs to be moved from the Cube onto the Tiida fan shroud. I cut part of the shroud off of the Cube and epoxied it to the Tiida shroud, and that worked brilliantly. To fit the airbox, that requires the Tiida battery tray and the Tiida ECU bracket. So the misconception with fitting the engine is the wiring. I'm using the CR14DE ECU to run the MR18. The only things you need to change, cam angle sensor and the crank angle sensor, just rewiring the plugs from the Tiida onto the Cube loom. The other piece of wiring that needs to be changed is the plug for the throttle body. Simple to change that over, and you need to add the map sensor to the intake manifold. I put mine where the evap goes for the fuel tank, and I mounted the Cube evap back away on a bracket. You'll also need to make the front section of the exhaust to mate up to the Cube exhaust. A couple of cables need to be extended, and depending on the model, because mine's a later model, I didn't have to, but others have had to change their alternator wiring also. For this end of the conversion, the drive shafts get swapped with the Tiida versions, and everything else just bolts up relatively simply. For the manual, you need to swap the brake master cylinder, add the master cylinder for the clutch. Proportioning valve that gets mounted below the airbox in here. Everything clips in across from the Tiida. So fitting the pedals is really simple. The accelerator remains the Cube pedal. The brake and clutch, the assemblies bolt over from the Tiida, and I'm not able to show you unfortunately, but you do have to drill a hole and feed a bolt through from the engine bay, but the hole is already marked in the sheet metal of the car. The center console, selector and handbrake all bolt in directly from the Tiida also. So the selector needs a hole cut in it. Again, that is marked in the panel work in the Cube. The handbrake is actually a foot brake in the Cube ordinarily. When you go to put that Tiida handbrake into the Cube, it actually bolts straight in, has a shorter cable that connects to the Cube's existing cables. Really, really simple. And nothing else under there changes. You do, in the back here, just under the ashtray, you do have to drill 2 holes. I put nutserts in on mine. And you will need to make a bracket for the left-hand side. But other than that, really, really simple to fit. I haven't found a solution for the steering wheel surround. At the moment, you can see there, I still have the hole where the selector would ordinarily come through. The Tiida steering wheel surround does not fit, but I believe a micro or something may, or an X-Trail. I will try those in the future, but for now, this works fine. So there you go guys, that's my MR18DE 6-speed manual conversion on my Z11 Nissan Cube. And if you'd like to know more, or for me to film any videos on specific parts of this build, also let me know below. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.